genre.
Hello and welcome back to the Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who, The Long Way Around, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Scott Corelli.
I'm Cass Fredrickson.
And I'm Nick Jimenez.
Today on the show, we'll be discussing Love and Monsters and Fear Her, the 10th Doctor's ninth story. It's because I Fear Her is the 10th Doctor's ninth story. Love and Monsters is like another thing entirely.
Elton's first story.
Yes. Okay. So Love and Monsters comes to us from writer Russell T Davies and director Dan Zeff. This is Dan Zeff's only directing credit on Doctor Who. And I guess the story of Love and Monsters began with a little show called Blue Peter, which is a children's program that's been running in the BBC since 1958. And back in the 60s, they did a competition for a Design a Monster competition back in the 60s. And it was like hugely popular. And Russell T Davies wanted to now that the show was back up and running and in its second season, he wanted to renew that relationship with Blue Peter and do a Design a Monster competition. And the winner was 9-year-old William Grantham, who designed the Absorbaloff. And apparently Grantham has grown up to not only be an actor, but also a writer, director, and producer of animated content. So
wow,
that's how long Doctor Who's been back.
Oh my God.
A 9-year-old is now working in the industry. So the Absorbaloff wins. Tennant actually picks the winner, David Tennant, and thought that this was the most impressive one. And so Davies was like, okay, we're going to use that monster in an episode of Doctor Who. That's the big prize. And what he did not know, however, was that the intention for the Absorbaloff was that he was going to be really, really tall, like kaiju sized. And and by the 9-year-old, the 9-year-old was like, this is like kaiju sized. That's why people are in his body. And that was not that didn't even occur to Russell T Davies, and so he just put a guy in a rubber suit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So after season 1 was sort of a hot mess production wise, and that was largely because recording blocks had to start overlapping in order to get finished on time, and all of this. So the Long Game was shot simultaneously with The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. They basically put all of the Doctor and companion stuff, they mixed up the schedule enough so that Eccleston and Billy Piper shot all of their stuff at a regular schedule, and then all the other scenes were sort of overlapping with each other and all of this stuff. It was a mess. And Russell T Davies was looking down the barrel of okay, so I did 13 episodes and it was a hot mess. And now I've got 14 episodes to produce this season with the Christmas invasion. How am I going to do this? And then so he concocted the idea of a Doctor-lite episode. And originally, the concept for that episode was called I Love the Doctor. and it concerned a female fan who was essentially stalking the Doctor. So it's about a female Doctor stalker.
Great.
Yeah. But he said that since season 28 or season 2 was already populated with women in strong supporting roles, Davies decided to replace the female stalker with a more benign male protagonist named Elton Pope. And then he wanted to tell a story about the nurturing environment of fandom and how it can be spoiled by domineering, self-important superfans. And so we get Love and Monsters. The actor, Peter Kay, who is apparently like a comedian guy, but had also like done some work on like Coronation Street and things like that. He wrote to Russell T Davies and was like, I want to be in Doctor Who. And he's like, well, I've got this great part, Elton Pope. Maybe you can play this. And he read the script and was like, Elton Pope is too similar to my character on Coronation Street, so I would actually rather play the Absorbaloff and his alter ego. And so they like worked together on the character, and then he ended up playing that character instead. And Mark Warren was cast as Elton instead. Mark Warren is interesting because this is like the only time he's ever played a character like this. Typically he plays like a heavy, like a scary like crime guy. He was on The Good Wife, in arguably the worst arc of The Good Wife ever had. He was a part of, which didn't help things. But yeah, he was like a character's like criminal ex-boyfriend, and he was like very abusive, but like she was into it, and but then like also hated that she was into it. It was like a whole thing, and he was like intimidating, and like it was weird. I just could not take it seriously whatsoever, because I was like, that's the guy from Love and Monsters. I don't know. He's not particularly. He's pretty scrawny to be intimidating. But yeah, that's the typical kind of role that he plays. So this was like very out of left field for him. And yeah, this was the last episode to shoot in season 2. They like basically shot out Rose and the Doctor, and had shot the finale, the 2-part finale, like 2 or 3 episodes earlier. They like shot that the 2-part finale like somewhere in the middle of the production of season 2, presumably because of all the special effects that would need to happen in post. But what was funny about this was that he was writing this and he decided like, oh, I'm going to put Jackie Tyler in this. Well, Camille Cordry, like she thought she was done. Like she shot the finale. She wasn't in the remainder of the episode. So she was like, oh yeah, I guess like that's it for me. Like that's it for Jackie, old Jackie. And then he like called her up and was like, hey, so Jackie's got like a really big part in this episode. Do you want to like film one last episode? And she was like thrilled to come back and have such like a focus on the character in this episode. And I'll be honest, there's some really good. The Jackie stuff is probably the best stuff in this episode, I think personally. But that's it. It came out. People hated it. This came out at a time when shows were like randomly doing episodes like this a lot, and it was I literally think it is the start of people calling episodes filler episodes on the internet. That term that gets thrown away by fans who demand like things to happen that are important in every episode to the plot and only the plot. It doesn't matter if it's good for the characters. Yeah, because this was like around the same time that the famous Lost episode, the Apollo and
Nikki,
the Nikki and Apollo episode. Yeah, of Lost. This is like around the same time that happened, and everyone was like, "Fuck this filler bullshit! Stop wasting my time."
So many questions.
Yeah.
We're wasting
there was,
time.
so there was just a huge backlash to this episode. And until another episode that we all really don't like happened, this was the lowest rated episode on IMDb. But there's an episode that is one notch below this one. That's Fear Her. That's not this one. That's Fear Her. Fear Her is the lowest rated IMDb, but we'll get to Fear Her in a second. This one is like still pretty low. But anyway, that's Love and Monsters. Hey, you know how you make Love and Monsters a great episode? You watch it in a double feature with Fear Her. But yeah, I don't know. Largely speaking, it's the last 15 minutes of this episode that just sucks the wind out of this episode's sails. The last 15 minutes are just absolute dog shit. I don't know why any of that is in this. The last 15 minutes, it's just feels so mean, for like no reason. Like, why are they punishing these poor people? I don't know. But everything up to that point, I actually kind of enjoy. I don't know. It's not as bad as I remember it. I actually quite like all of that stuff up until the last 15 minutes. What do you guys think? Nick, what do you think?
I know individually, I think of Love and Monsters and Fear Her as like, oh yeah, those two episodes that Scott really hates.
Yeah.
And I never appreciated that those are both in a row, one after the other.
I think the 1-2 punch of Love and Monsters and then Fear Her, I am excited on our next round to talk about the finale, the season 2 finale, on its own in a vacuum, because I think that those 2 episodes in a row just absolutely obliterated my goodwill going into the finale. And for a long time, I've always felt that the season 2 finale was the weakest finale of the Russell T Davies era. I don't know if that's actually true or if it's literally just me being like getting through the slog of these 2 episodes before getting to the finale just like affected my enjoyment of it. I don't know. Very curious to find out. But what was your second point?
So I vividly remember sitting down to watch this for the first time on Sci-Fi, like back in 2006 or whenever. And this was back when every night I would sit down and be like, okay, what's going to happen this week on this crazy show from England that only I know about. And so I remember watching this for the first time being like, whoa, a Doctor Who episode can be this and like not have the Doctor. It reminded me of like a Batman the Animated Series episode where, you know, we tilt into and we see like, what are the regular people in Gotham doing? Or how does Batman affect, you know, regular people? And so I have a lot of affection for this episode and how big and campy it is. And I think your taste could veer onto whether or not a lot of this episode is like charming or obnoxious. And so, but yeah, I had like a fun time watching this, and yeah, like it's almost kind of like a horror comedy with like, and that has all these kind of likable, quirky characters. Then like just, you know, they each befell a horrible fate, but in kind of like a campy, comical way. But also kind of sad. So yeah, it's a really weird episode.
Yeah. Cass?
No, I agree. I really like this episode up until the point I do not like this episode. And it really is the alien. As soon as the alien like is revealed, I just like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I think part of the reason why I like this is because I do personally find it charming, and also like the conceit or like the narrative whatever of the episode where he's like making a little documentary. I watched Doctor Who after finishing Buffy for the first time, and I really like that episode in season 7, Storyteller, which is, you know, like a a blonde guy talking to the camera, like making a documentary about his weird life. So the overlap for me, like the first time I saw this, I was like, oh, it's like Storyteller, but for Doctor Who. And then it was not that. But it was, it's really fun to revisit now. I really like all the Jackie stuff. I know last time we were talking about how that episode was pretty horny, but I think this one takes the cake because all of the Jackie scenes are like really delightfully like over the top.
Yeah.
Bless. I love her.
I was thinking at one point during one of her scenes, she might be the best Doctor Who character ever.
You could easily make that argument, I think. I really do think that. Yeah.
Like her and Brig.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would maybe throw in Bernard Cribbins just for good measure. But because I love him. No, I shan't. It's Christmas. So I love like the juxtaposition too, like the use of the cutaways are done in a way that like they're not like talking head, like The Office talking head kind of cutaways.
Mm-hmm.
They're more like these sort of like ironic narrative things, like the scene in the laundromat with Jackie where he was like, I have to do this, and then she does it for him like every time. I've got to get her to talk to me, and then she's like, oh, a cute guy, I'm gonna go talk to him. Like it was just so in character for Jackie, someone that we know so deeply well at this point, you know. And have not really gotten to see this side of her since kind of Rose, you know. I guess you get like a little hint of it with her boyfriend with the robe, with the orange in the robe in Christmas Invasion. Yeah, but other than that, like, you know, it's mostly about her dealing with Rose, and there's a little bit of that here, but I also just love Rose like coming to defend, just go kick some guy's ass because she heard her mom. But then, like, you know, I arguably, I mean, I don't know, I really don't like season 2 Rose. I talk about this all the time, but maybe Rose's best scene is her being like, I'm gonna kick your ass, seeing how much he's hurting, and then being like, oh, and then like going and like giving him a hug, and I'm like, that's nice. Like I don't know, like that feels very much like season 1 Rose to me. It's not often that she feels that way in season 2.
She also gets a really good moment in Fear Her where like she's the first one to notice the missing child posters while the doctor's like rambling about whatever.
Yeah, that's a pretty good moment too. But I don't know. Overall, all I could think, even in the good scenes, all I could think about was like, man, if Russell T Davies like today had come up with this concept, this episode would be so much better. It just feels very mean. I don't know. It just feels very mean spirited. Like these poor people didn't do anything wrong. Like, you know, they were like
I guess like the message at the end that Russell T was trying to make, or at least observation, like as a longtime fan, is like, or, you know, just a dude who's been thinking about Doctor Who since he was a little kid. It is the concept of like, oh, like if you get caught up in this guy's show, what are the repercussions of that? And it's like this tragedy of like, I hadn't thought of like the fandom allegory until you mentioned it. And now, oh yeah, it's like a group of people of different ages that are kind of like awkward and individual in their own way, like finding each other and being like cringy and like just and like vulnerable together, you know.
Yeah, there's that cool montage where he's like talking about how like, yeah, you know, like we all came to the doctor in different ways, and we would talk about the doctor, and for a while that was all we talked about, and then we just started talking about other things, and it was just sort of like about how, you know, fandoms, like you can just meet a group of people because you all like the same thing, but then over the course of time, like you just become friends, like real friends. And it's not just about that anymore, that one thing, but like that'll always be the thing that brought you together to begin with, you know, but eventually you just sort of move on and, you know, become real friends. And that's kind of what this was about. And I thought that was like really sweet and charming until they all died.
Well, I mean,
by
like,
a gross.
if you're thinking about fandom, like in like pre like now, and like even now, like with the internet, like if someone like drops out of like the message board or something, and you don't have a way to contact them because like some person is like bullying you guys in the message board or whatever, like you may never find that person again. Like that friendship is essentially like over unless you have exchanged like contact information. So like that I really like that as like an allegory for fandom, because like I used to have, like when I was on Tumblr, I used to have a lot of people that I met through there, and then we never exchanged like any other social media, and then I stopped being on there. So now I'm just like, I don't know how to contact these people anymore, and like that was a fun time, but like it you know what I mean? Like sometimes it just like friendships just like fall through the cracks like that. So it sucks that they like died in the episode, but as like a allegorical thing, that made sense to me.
Yeah.
Right, like their confusion of like where did this person go, but then also kind of how Elton is sort of able to you don't it's not inexcusable that they drop it after a certain point.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do? They were from like it made it seem like they were all even from different parts of the UK.
That is true. No, and I understand that. I also thought it was weird that like the first girl that gets absorbed
Bliss
I don't remember her in the Absorbitron's body. I only remember the two older folks, and
there's
Babu
a joke that she's on the butt. She's on his butt.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that joke. Okay. Yeah.
Not a great joke.
Your brain like
yeah,
your brain like blacked out for a second.
Yeah, I probably did. Yeah, I really don't like toilet humor in Doctor Who. It bothers me. It just doesn't feel like they don't go together.
You know, that might be the finger of the monkey's paw curling with this Russell T Davies comeback.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just hoping that he's older now and
he's like grown out of it.
Gonna be doing that. Yeah, I hope. But because also like not for nothing, but he's sort of gotten wrung out over fat shaming, which is like kind of a thing that he did a lot during his era. So hopefully he was listening to all of that and being like, "Oh, I shouldn't do that this time." Fingers crossed. Anyway. Yeah. I understand the allegory and I appreciate the allegory. I just like all of them and I don't want them to be absorbed by a gross monster thing. That's like, I mean, he's like fat bastard, but like in like an alien costume, but it's like the same accent and like, yeah, it's just fat bastard. I don't know.
I can empathize with that because, I guess from what made it work for me or not like too sad for me is just the camp, like of them all dying in the exact same way of like, one second, Bliss, can you stay for a minute? Oh, okay. Bye everybody. Okay. We're not sensing a pattern. And like the like Edgar Wright joke of like them walking away just in time for like the scream. It was like so over the top that it wasn't like watching like, sometimes I watch like horror comedies like Scream or Slither or something. And it's always like a little bittersweet watching these fun characters get killed off,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This isn't as good as any of the examples that you listed. So.
Two very good movies.
Yeah.
What did you think of the callbacks to like big events that had happened throughout the RTD run at the time at the beginning? Like where he was during the mannequin invasion and all that.
I like that, but I think it's done better in Turn Left, which is like essentially doing the same thing that this is. It's even a Doctor-lite episode, but yeah. I don't know. I think this concept is like a fun concept, like the Doctor-lite episode, but I think it's done better in the subsequent seasons. Like Blink, obviously, masterpiece, and then be like splitting up the Doctor-lite companion light episodes in season 4. I think is a really smart. That was like a really smart structural thing by having like midnight and turn left back to back. Yeah. So.
It's weird that it's interesting that they flash back to Rose, like the episode, or not Rose. Yeah, that is Rose, right?
Yeah.
With the
Rose.
Boxman.
Yeah.
I own the novel version of that. I should know that. There's a part that always bugged me because even in that episode, we meet a Doctor Who obsessive, that guy in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought it was a weird kind of mean-spirited choice to kill him off in that episode.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that happened. Yeah.
In front of his wife and son.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I'm always like, because he's so like, he's funny and he's charming. And then watching Love and Monsters earlier, I was like, oh man, if they hadn't have killed him off, he totally could have been like one of the Linda people, and it would have been a fun like callback.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That would have been fun. I was also watching this. Okay, I know, Nick, you have never seen Torchwood. Cass, have you ever seen Torchwood, or did you like?
Yeah, I watched
watch
all
a
of
few
Torchwood.
episodes of it? All of Torchwood. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, great. Isn't this guy like Elton? Like his energy is what was missing from Torchwood. Like if he was like the new guy on the crew and like was having to deal with like Jack and like all this, I feel like that's the energy that was missing from Torchwood, was like a little bit of like earnestness.
So you mean fun?
Yeah. Yeah. Fun.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about like The Boys and like the dynamic that they get there by having
Jack Quaid.
Jack Quaid, thank you. I was like Jameson, Jonathan, Jack Quaid. By having like Jack Quaid opposite God, I'm forgetting everybody's name.
Bill the Butcher.
Yeah, Bill the Butcher. Sure. But yeah, that dynamic of just like, whoa, what are you doing now? Like that whole thing, I think is fun. And like, if he had just literally brought back Elton and just been like, it's going to be Elton and Jack, and that's going to be what like the start of like, that would be so fun. And like Jack constantly like hitting on Elton, like just for fun,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
like just that vibe plus the rest of the team. Cause like, I don't want to get rid of Gwen, but like making Gwen the main character of that show was always like weird because she wasn't that far removed from Jack in terms of like vibes. And so it just, I don't know. The show like never quite reached the potential of its concept.
Yeah. I think everyone is like, it takes itself too seriously and everyone's like so angry all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were missing like this guy's energy in that show.
He's a fun RTD character.
Mm-hmm.
He's somehow like a very like vulnerable, soft dude without it being like too like like, you know, RTD isn't too concerned with us like pitying this dude or like feeling bad for him. But but we do though, because like even when Rose is like, it's almost kind of like he's like a kid, the way she's kind of like hugging him and trying to make him like, oh, it's okay, I'm sorry all your friends got like liquefied. You seem like a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh man, I had one other thought that I wanted to bring up. Originally in the first draft of this, when it flashes back to his mom getting killed, his mom gets killed by an Auton during the events of Terror of the Autons. But then he realized like he needed to see the doctor and they wouldn't be able to do that because that would be the third Doctor, which would have been, you know, difficult. Because I don't think Sean Pertwee was going to come back and play his dad. So they nixed that and just had it set in the 70s. But I thought that would be fun because the idea was like that happens, but he like kind of blacked it out, like how his mom died and the whole thing. And then when Rose happens and the Autons attack again, he's like, wait. And then it like started like open stuff up in his head again, which is what gets everything rolling. Autons beget autons. It's like reliving his trauma. Yeah. Anyway,
this was the first time I ever heard the song "Mr. Blue Sky."
Nice.
And it I was like, oh my God, what is this? I spent weeks looking for it.
It's a really good song. It's a really good song. I will say, I think the first time I heard it was in the trailer for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But it blew me away then. So there's that.
When was the first time you heard Mr. Blue Sky?
I could not tell you.
Yeah.
Guys, real quick, I'm 60% sure that we have had the exact conversation we just had on another episode of the show itself.
Really? About that song?
Yeah, I just got deja vu.
Oh, okay. Lastly, shout out to Shirley Henderson, aka Babu Frick herself.
Moaning Myrtle.
Moaning Myrtle. That character she plays in the Bridget Jones movies.
We're blowing Cass's mind right now.
She's the voice of Babu Frick too.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh.
Yes.
Shut up. No way.
There's a documentary of her. She operates him too.
My God.
That's all her.
Hey.
Yeah. There's a behind the scenes documentary on the Rise of Skywalker Blu-ray or whatever. It's probably in the special features on Disney Plus. You can just watch it.
Nice.
But yeah, she's doing it, and she does the Babu Frick voice, and
that's awesome.
It's amazing.
I love that for her.
Yeah,
national treasure.
Yeah. This is something that I understand that her voice is very
unique.
Unique, yes, and as a result, she does mostly voiceover stuff. However, I was just charmed as hell to see her just playing a normal human being in this. Just a normal human being with a normal human being life. I was like, look at you, just like wearing jeans and t-shirts and just, being normal. That was nice. You don't get to see that very much with her.
She's kind of in the same league as like Keira Knightley, because she's also really good in Marie Antoinette. But they're both actors where it's like every time I see you, you're like in the Regency era or like Les Miserables era.
Yeah, absolutely. Or a ghost in the boys' bathroom.
Is she in a Richard Curtis movie?
Well, I mean, it depends on if you count the Bridget Jones movies as Richard Curtis movies.
Oh, of course, duh. Yeah,
because she is in those. Part of Bridget Jones's friend group,
she's
alongside Gaius Baltar, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He's the sassy gay friend, Gaius Baltar, in the Bridget Jones movies.
Those movies had the best like friend groups, like 90s to 2000s British comedies.
Anyway,
just like Linda.
all right. Do we have anything else to say about Linda, about Love and Monsters? I was thinking at one point when they were coming up with the name Linda, what is it? The
London Investigation and Detective Agency.
Right, with the N. Yeah. Rock and roll, pork and beans, or
fish
whatever. Fish and chips. When he was talking about that, I was just like, man, if this was an episode people loved, you wouldn't be able to get away from that T-shirt. Like the Linda T-shirt, where it's like one of those like if you know,
like the
T-shirts.
Hellfire Club.
Yeah. I'm just like, man, I wonder if anyone has ever made that shirt or if it's just everyone just ignores it.
Yeah, like go on T-Public, type in
Doctor
Who Linda, see what comes up.
Yeah, probably somebody's done it. Anyway, I'm happy to report to everyone that this will be the last time that I ever see the Absorbaloft.
That's fair.
You know, I'll say this about the Absorbaloft. He looks like the creation of a 9-year-old boy come to life.
That is true. I'll give you that. That long mohawk, man. It's a lot. It's too much. I think it's just, he's so gross.
Who's that X-Man villain that loves, like, he's like a reality TV host?
Mojo. Yep, Mojo. He very much looks like Mojo, except that he walks. He's not in like a little flying hovercraft thingy. Mm-hmm. I will say, credit where credit's due. The joke about him being the from the Sylvains, like, twin planet, and his and it's like, oh, it's weird that we have these back to back with Boomtown last week. But just the fact that, like, the joke about, like, theirs being really long and then the twin planet just being like clomp and that's it. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's a good joke. I don't know.
And his, like, utter contempt for the Sylvain.
Yeah. Anyway, Love and Monsters. Take it or leave it. Moving on to Fear Her. So, okay. So Fear Her. Well, okay. So Fear Her is an episode that was a replacement episode. Shocker. Originally, there was an episode that was going to be written by Stephen Fry that was going to take place in the 1920s. And they decided that they were having budget issues in season 2 and weren't going to be able to afford it. So they pushed it to the next season, and then ultimately it just got abandoned completely. So Stephen Fry still has yet to write an episode of Doctor Who. So he went to Matthew Graham, who would, I think around the same time, was creating Life on Mars, which is the show that popularized the actor who would go on to play the Master in season 3. So he's going to write this thing, and he came from, I guess, kids television, and so he was like really excited to like write Doctor Who. And Davies was like, "Hey, so we need a budget conscious episode. So can you do an episode that takes place in a single location, like a bunker?" And Graham was like, "That sounds dull." So instead, he proposes a high concept idea about an entity draining an alien planet of its beauty.
Huh.
And Davies was like, "I don't like that. No, I don't want to do that. That's not what I asked you to do. And also, it sounds like it sucks." So he asked him instead to try to consider a scenario that would appeal to his young son. And so then he started talking about how kids are like afraid of like old portraits, and then was like, what if there was an adventure involving living paintings? But then he was like, but it would be even creepier if it was children's drawings because they're like surreal and disproportionate. And then they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then he greenlit that concept. And so we get this, and they decided that, like, okay, we're just going to have this take place in a regular neighborhood. We're going to shoot this in the same block with Idiot's Lantern. So this is literally like a few blocks away from where they shot Idiot's Lantern, and you can kind of feel it. Mm-hmm. Like, it feels like part of the same area, without a doubt. And then they're like, okay, well, I mean, that's boring. So let's at least do a little something extra and have it take place in the mild future of 2012. And because I guess everyone had Olympics fever because the London Olympics for 2012 had just been announced, I think, fairly recently up to this point. And so they're like, yeah, let's do that. And the original title, here's the thing, and I can't emphasize this enough. These titles are cool, but it wouldn't help the fact that the episode is still bad. Like, the episode would not have changed. So whatever. But one episode title that they threw around was Chloe Weber Destroys the Earth. And another one was You're a Bad Girl, Chloe Weber. Both of which I vastly prefer to Fear Her, which is truly one of the worst Doctor Who titles, only matching the fact that it's one of the worst Doctor Who episodes. But at least the title would have been cool. But I guess it would have been even a further disappointment if the title was cool and the episode was this. But yeah, that's it. Nothing really notable. Nothing else really notable about this one. And I think we can just stop talking about it. Episode over. I don't know. I don't like to really point fingers, but I mean, truly, this is, I blame Euros Lyn. I don't blame the actress, but this is one of the worst kid performances I've ever seen in anything. It is truly horrendous, and I blame Euros Lyn. And we've talked about Euros Lyn on the show a lot. He directed this episode. He directed The Idiot's Lantern. And we've talked about the fact that Euros Lyn is a guy who is feast or famine. Either he gets a good episode and heightens that thing to heights that you've never experienced before on Doctor Who, or he gets a bad script and he is incapable of elevating it in any way, and in fact seems to double down on how shitty it is. And I don't really understand that, but that's Euros Lyn for you. And boy, oh boy, does he not pull any punches in this one. It seems like he is filming this entire episode with contempt for this script. It is infuriating to watch, and I just wish somebody had directed this poor child, because holy shit. Woof. Anyway, what do you guys think?
I like it.
Really?
Yeah, I had fun. I've always had a soft spot for this one, just because, again, it was kind of part of the original run where I was like, okay, last week was really weird. What's going to happen this week? Oh, it's the Olympics. Cool. And this kind of, for me, this had just kind of like a Scully and Mulder vibe, where it's just, and very, longtime listeners know how Scott feels about this era of Ten and Rose. But just watching them kind of their back and forth was fun. I just think the A Solace is just kind of a lovely, beautiful kind of concept of these flowers that are hyper empathetic and need community because they're traversing the stars, and one separates and is so lonely and sad, and it attaches to this little girl and is senses that it's the irony that this scary, weird girl, Chloe Weber, is actually this really lovable, kind person, so much that the Colossus is attracted to it and loves it. At the end, where it's I love you, Chloe Weber, goodbye. I'm this is a really lovely little sci-fi story. And it the stakes are really low. And then I have a lot of, it's just kind of, the image of David Tennant running down the street with the Olympic torch, just kind of, it makes me happy after all these years.
Cass?
So I don't like this one. But I will say that this time around, the scene where the evil drawing dad is threatening the mom and the kid, I felt that this time. I don't know, something about Wednesday, I guess. So I was able to empathize with these characters instead of just oh, this episode. But and I kind of Rose on her own, working out the puzzle by herself without the doctor. Because at first when we started the long way around and we got to the Tennant and Rose stuff, I didn't really understand the smug thing that you have a problem with, Scott. But like I like Idiot's Lantern for sure, and this one too, like at the very beginning when they're kind of like shooting the shit. Especially because we just came off of like watching Eccleston and Rose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm like souring on their dynamic, and I don't know how to feel about that. But I liked her by herself, like working through the puzzle and everything. But other than that, I don't really care for this one.
I appreciate everything that you're saying, Nick. I just don't think that any of it is on screen. Like I know they say all of these things, and I'm sure it's in the script, but I just feel like Euros Lyn doesn't bring any of that. Like the way that you're talking about it is so much better executed than the way that it's shot in the episode.
I guess
so
to me,
unpleasant.
Yeah, and I guess it's like the when I watch it, it also, I wouldn't put this on like Unicorn and the Wasp level or even like, Christmas Invasion, but to me it's just kind of like rudimentary. Like it's like, oh yeah, this is like a slice of this era that I loved at the time and now have a lot of nostalgia for. So like what you said about it being like blocks away from the Idiot's Lantern, it kind of like, oh yes, it feels like it's part of this like, universe. Like I like the Olympic guy, the guy who's really obsessed with the quality of the roads. I feel like we don't get characters like that in like the Chibnall era or even the Moffat era. And like it's like almost kind of like Stephen King, the old lady that's like, go inside. It's not safe.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm having fun. This is fun to me.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about like the way that the child actress like is like growling all of her dialogue that just grates on me real bad.
It's the whisper thing. I don't like it when people get whispery and it's like supposed to be menacing, but it's just like I don't know. I feel bad for this actress.
All I was thinking about was like, I was like, this sounds like a Big Finish story. Like it doesn't sound like television to me.
Yeah, even with it being like one street and like 6 characters. Yeah, it's very,
I almost feel like Big Finish would have executed this better than this episode was executed. This same story, given the same script, let them adapt it to audio, and I think it would be a better story than this, and they probably would have given it a better title than Fear Her. What? Oh, I don't know.
In its defense, because it's just 2 words, I think in a world where the episode was like, I think if Deep Breath was a really bad story, Deep Breath would become a really bad title. Does that make sense?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Well, I remember people didn't like it at the time, the title, Deep Breath.
Right, with how like broad it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of audio, there's a really cool shot of like a town banner, like the Olympics 2012. And I don't normally like going in and remastering stuff, but I thought it would have been really cool if they went back and put in somebody that I used to know, like playing in the background.
That's good.
Nice.
I did like the part where she stole all the people at the Olympics, and the Olympics announcer was just like, they're all gone right before my eyes. And then he was like, let's call Jeff in the booth. Jeff, are you there? Oh, not you too, Jeff. Like,
oh no, Jeffrey, not you. No.
Yeah, it's so good. I like that. I like that part. Yeah. I also liked. Do the Olympic torches actually look like that, or did they try to like figure
like futurify them?
Yeah, did they try to futurify the torches because they're like obviously in 2012?
I think that each Olympics has its own distinct torch design. I think that's like part of the thing. So like,
okay.
Mm-hmm. Killer Brimbor forges a new one.
I remember how badly everyone wanted David Tennant to be one of the people running the torch. during the Olympics in 2012. And I'm like, why? To make this episode canon? Why? Why is
I
this
remember
the
that
one?
too. That was like a Tumblr post that I would see a lot back in the day. It's like, guys, we're only a few years away. David Tennant has to.
Yeah. I remember that.
I think the concept of a kid drawing and then a kid getting sucked into the drawing and it's like sad and like banging against. I remember thinking like that's a scary kind of almost Moffat-y idea on its own.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the X-Files of it all. This feels like an X-Files episode and not like it feels like an X-Files episode for like half of it, maybe a little more than half. But like, and then the actual explanation of what's going on is very Doctor Who, but like everything surrounding it is very X-Files. But like, I don't know. I don't know if I want X-Files in my Doctor Who. That's what X-Files is for. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even think there's nothing like even in the script that necessarily like I don't like, right? Like it's not like I'm like hearing the script and being like, "Oh, this sucks." It really is just it just feels so the whole episode just feels kind of half-assed by Euros Lyn. I fully blame him for this for my feelings on this episode. I don't blame anybody else. I think this script in another director's hands could be a fine episode. But as for some reason, I don't know, his heart wasn't in this one, I don't think. I don't know why.
You mentioned the kind of the misdirection of the actor playing Chloe Weber. Apparently he directed all of, if not most of that show Heartstopper from earlier this year.
Yeah.
Was that good?
Yeah.
Cool.
It was phenomenal directing. That's the thing. But it was, I don't know. I mean,
but also, isn't that crazy how that's like 17 years ago? Like,
yeah.
Of work. Because I think he directed like a bunch of Sherlock.
Yeah. He's been around a while. Yeah. I don't know. Heartstopper. Cass, if you watched Heartstopper, you should watch Heartstopper. It's like an anime.
I haven't, but I should.
It's
yes.
it's like a gay anime. Like it's so good. It's so good. You would love it so much. You just watch the whole thing with hearts in your eyes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Also, they're never like mean to the characters. Like that's so like you don't ever have to like every time you get to a point where you're like, oh no, like something bad is gonna happen. Nothing bad ever happens. So like,
nice.
Know that going in. Like all those like stressful moments, they relieve the tension pretty quickly. Where they're like, but the bad thing's not gonna happen. The thing you think is gonna happen that would happen in any other show, it's not gonna happen. It's great.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And Olivia Colman's in it. Doctor Who's Olivia Colman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I don't know. It was I was just kind of flabbergasted by like how much a TV director like can affect an episode of a show.
Mm-hmm.
Cuz yeah, like as you're explaining it, it's like, yeah, I guess there isn't anything wrong with this story. It's just the execution of it all that I really don't like. I don't know. That's so weird.
Yeah, I'm now currently going back to which episodes of Doctor Who modern era that I really didn't like, and like, can I think about why? And I guess I think about like what's the one with the haunted? That's the thing. Yeah, like they kind of evaporate in my head. Like, what's the Matt Smith one where it's like a haunted house and there's a camera and there's like the Ghostbusters cold open?
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
I remember that one being really boring and uninteresting.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah. But I also haven't watched it in like 8 years.
Well, I will say, so I mentioned earlier, this is the lowest rated episode on IMDb until another episode that we all, I know that we all don't like, which is Sleep No More. Sleep No More beat this one for the worst rated one. And if you don't remember what Sleep No More is, it is the found footage episode of Doctor Who where everybody has like the sand in their eyes and yeah.
Why?
It's got Reese Shearsmith. What is his name? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That guy. What is his name?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Reese.
Really helped me out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Capaldi era episode. It's in the
Cass,
last season of Clara.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Sleep No More? Okay.
I remember us not liking it.
Mm-hmm.
For being like my favorite Doctor, I think, that's a big statement, but for some reason there's a lot of Capaldi stories I really don't remember very clearly.
Yeah. 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 Oh, and then it's tied with Kill the Moon, which fair.
See, okay, so looking at Kill the Moon to me is an episode that is actively like I get frustrated. Because I'm like, the show can be smarter than this, and like I hate that it's like, why is it designed this way to get this point across, or is this the point that it's trying to get across? When I watch Fear Her, it just kind of rolls along, and it's like checking in with my friends this week.
Sure, yeah, and I think that is exactly what I mean, where it's like there isn't actually anything wrong with the script, and I think that's what you're recognizing. But for me, it's the way all of that was brought to life is what my problem is, which makes it like kind of a unique episode in that way, I think. Yeah, he has bad luck with directors, this guy, because he would go on to write the Goopy Guys 2-parter.
Revenge of the Goopy Guys.
The gangers, the evil 11th Doctor one, yeah.
Right. Rebel Flesh and the normal people.
The one we always think
like
is Chibnall, but isn't Chibnall.
Yeah, the one
because
that's
we
very
don't like
Chibnall-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it's boring, and I think that's because of the director. Again, I think the director, like, I don't know. We'll see when we revisit it eventually, but yeah, I don't know.
I feel bad that we were like, oh yeah, that really boring one. Yeah, it's a Chibnall one, right? Yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway, they released the first pictures from the Power of the Doctor today, and I was just like looking at the pictures, and I was just like, yeah, it looks like a Chibnall episode. All right. And I felt bad, but I was just like, oh boy, I'm ready for this era to be over.
I haven't seen them.
The photos?
No. Are they?
Yeah, BBC released them.
Anything of note, like a dog in a mech suit, or?
They're Cybermen. Your favorite.
Great.
Yep.
Oh, that hasn't happened yet, right? That hasn't happened in Jodie's era.
Yeah,
what?
It did. Cybermen?
Oh, okay.
The Mary Shelley one?
Oh, of course, my favorite episode of the whole era.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. The lone Cyberman. He was like a whole villain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, see, this is why we did both of these episodes together. Could you imagine if we hadn't?
We'd still be talking about ELO.
Yeah. And then in 1978, ELO put out this album.
Wait, so this was supposed to be like a cost saver, right?
Yeah.
Like they paid for like 3 ELO songs in this.
In
Love and Monsters.
Love and Monsters, not in
Love
Fear Her.
and Monsters, yeah.
Yeah. Love and Monsters was trying to save on the schedule, scheduling of Billy Piper and David Tennant by like not having them heavily featured in it. This episode, Fear Her, was the cost saving episode.
Okay.
Which it makes sense because it's just like the Doctor and Rose walking in and out of people's houses, really the same house, walking in and out of the same house, walking in backyards, and
it's kind of an RPG.
Gardens. Yeah. What?
It's kind of an RPG.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're just like walking around, chilling. You know, people disappear, but they don't like do it on camera. They just it's like a noise, and you cut back and they're gone.
Or a cat.
So, yeah. Cat goes into a box. There's nothing in the box.
Cat don't come out of
That's
the
like
box.
that's a Schrodinger's cat joke, right? That's what that was.
Oh.
Yeah.
I get it.
Like a really
there-
subtle Schrodinger's cat joke.
There's that great backcombing joke
In
Where's
Fear
it?
Her?
in Love and Monsters again.
Okay.
Going back to oh no, it is Fear Her because they're following the cat. And Rose sees the cat. It's like, oh, who's a pretty boy? And David Tennant's like, oh yeah, thanks. I'm experimenting with backcombing. And then it's like, oh, you were talking to the cat.
Oh yeah, right. Man, imagine if she talked to the doctor like that. Who's a handsome boy? I love the idea that he earnestly believed that that's who she was talking to. Anyway, all right. Well, I don't know. The torch was lit. The Olympics happened. I don't know.
He did it.
We caught up to this episode before we caught up to Back to the Future Part 2. And that was in 1989. So, you know. This is 2012. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. Kind of a bust on the 10th Doctor for me this round. But, you know, it is what it is. We had to talk about these stories. So.
What's next time?
There it is. Next time's The Lodger.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which is going to be very interesting because I don't think I've watched this episode since You Know Who has become You Know Who.
Yeah.
Say his name, Scott. Voldemort.
James Corden. Mm-hmm. You know, it'll be an interesting rewatch this time because I just, you know, that's the thing. I liked The Wrong Mans when it came out. Didn't much care for the second season, but I loved the first season of The Wrong Mans. I watched his sitcom. I liked James Corden, and now I am told that I shouldn't like him. I was told by British people that we shouldn't like him, and we were like, whatever. You guys are just you're just drowning in Corden. You know, we don't have to worry about that. And now we're drowning in Corden, and so we do have to worry about it. I don't know.
Cass, how do you feel about James Corden, like emotionally?
Well, I watched Cats 2019, so not great. We'll see. I still like The Lodger. So we'll see.
You didn't like his ad-libbing? His cat prov?
Cat prov.
I
Horrible.
wonder if Brian listens to this show.
No.
Well, he should.
He doesn't watch Doctor Who.
Right, yeah.
Anyway. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with The Lodger, or not next week, next time with The Lodger. I've lost track of what day we're on our release schedule, but our next episode, you guys know when it's coming out. It's either a Sunday or a Tuesday. We are releasing The Lodger, and we're almost done. And then The Power of the Doctor is on the other side of that. So
The
fun
sequel to The Power of
times. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting when that title hit. There were two jokes happening simultaneously that were the same joke, but about different aspects of it, which was the joke that Cass posted on the Discord, which was like, the power of the Doctor. If I had a nickel for every time a Chibnall episode was called The Power of, I'd have 2 nickels. Mm-hmm. It's weird that it's happened twice. But then the other joke that I was hearing a lot was like, this sounds like a Moffat episode because of name of the Doctor, day of the Doctor, time of the Doctor, power of the Doctor.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's just like, it like reminds people of 2 different things simultaneously, which I thought was really interesting.
I hope it has a lot in common with well, no, never mind. I hope it's more on the side of the Moffat side of things. I don't know. Do we like? What did we think of Power 3 all those years ago? I think we were okay with it.
I don't remember. I do not remember. I remember it has fun Matt Smith stuff in it, but that's all I remember.
Like fun, like the three of them being roommate stuff.
Yeah. Right.
They play Nintendo Wii.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they do. That's right.
Maybe they'll play Nintendo Wii and the Power of the Doctor.
Yeah. Anyway. That art that came out about the Power of the Doctor, I was just thinking, like, what's going to happen to her earring when she regenerates? Like, is the next Doctor going to have an earring now because she has an earring? Or is it going to just, like, fall off?
I can't believe we have a Doctor with, like, a dangly cuff earring who isn't the gayest Doctor. Anyway, I'm mad about it. But anyway.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Presumably less than a month, but we'll see. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with The Lodger. Bye-bye.
Happy Olympics.